Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another 7970 video review for you. Today, or in this video review, we're going to be taking a look at the Powercolor 7970, or we're going to be using the Powercolor 7970, but more specifically, we're going to be looking at the overclocking and what a single card performs like in the games with triple screens. So 5760 by 1080. Now I've done a selection of all other videos. We've done single card, stock on both the old PCI Express 2 rig versus the new PCI Express 3 rig. There's going to be another video for Crossfire, which will also include triple screens, and then we're also going to be doing a madness video with quad fire, so 4 7970s, just to see what benchmark numbers we can get if you're nuts enough to have 4 of them kicking around. So be sure to go and take a look at all of them, but for now I'm going to get straight on, show you the card, show you the rig, and then we'll break into some benchmarks. Right then peeps, on to have a look at the actual card itself. Quite strangely, I don't seem to have got the rest of the stickers here that should have said HD 7970, so apparently I've just got a 970. As with all the reference design cards, it's just a case of most of them have stuck a sticker here and maybe stuck a sticker here. Otherwise, they're all the same. But I just wanted to show you the Powercolor card. I'll turn the sticker the right way around. Show you the Powercolor card in the rig and tell you what it is, because some of you may not have seen the other ones. So the rig today is Rampage 4 Extreme. That's got a 3960X in it. Memory is Corsair GTX 8. It can run at 2400 megahertz, but my CPU can't actually hold it that high. So it's only running at 2133. Cooling is a Corsair H100, and if I move the camera a little bit, there you go, you can see that we're using Noctua Focus Flow fans, the NF-F12s. The power is Corsair AX 1200 watt, which is massive overkill, but it's just the one that I have on my bench rig. I definitely wouldn't suggest this if you were buying a single card. To be perfectly honest with you, a single card, even an AX 750 would be overkill for this rig. Just to kind of give you an idea, do you know what I mean? An AX 750, to be perfectly honest with you, you could run 2 cards off of. One thing I will say is just make sure that you don't necessarily have to use a Corsair power supply, although they're the ones that I've used for years. All I would say is just make sure you buy a decent brand, because so many people they skimp on the power supply, and that's the wrong way to go about it. The better power supplies, even though this is turning into a power supply review, but the better power supplies have got safety features built into them if things go wrong. So yeah, we'll leave that there anyway. That could be a good video. Why I should make a video in the future. But anyway, that is the rig that we're going to be using today. What we are going to be doing is some overclocked results. So we're going to max the card out, see how far we can get the old girl to go. But then we're also going to do some single screen and triple screen results. I'm not sure which way I'm going to swing the video yet, but just make sure you click the link underneath, because that is what's going to be in the main written review on Overclock 3D, and that's where you're going to be able to see all the graphs and compare it with all other stuff that I don't necessarily want to be putting in the video and turn it into a comic rather than a nice flowing video, even though you've only just been staring at that for the last 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So what we're going to do now is crack straight on with some benchmarks, and we'll wade straight in with some 3D Mark 11. Right then peeps, I'm zoomed right in on CCC, or Catalyst Control Center, however you want to put it, and I will show you how easy it is to overclock these cards. Now, quite literally, all I've done, or all I'm going to be doing for the rest of the test, is moving the GPU clock right the way up to its buffers of 1125. That's set on pretty much most of the reference cards that I've seen and that are coming out. There may be BIOSes that let you go further later, but this is all I've seen so far. It's an 1125 megahertz top end. Now, gone are the days when we used to think that basically 1,000 was a big thing. Now, one thing we do need to remember before all you AMD boys start going nuts about NVIDIA only going to 950 is that it's not necessarily all about the core clock. It's about the way everything works. But the core clock on this one does go very high. It does go quite a few hundred megahertz beyond the stock clock, which is quite impressive in itself. But basically we can go from 925 up to 1125, which is 200 megahertz above. For the memory, we can go from 1375 all the way up to 1575, which is again another 200. I think that might have been something that AMD have done on purpose, to be honest with you. And power control, I've just moved it right the way to the end, and it's not necessarily putting the voltage up, it's got the ability to go that much higher if you want. And quite literally, you click apply, and that's it. It's done, and that's how we're going to be doing for the rest of our tests. So you'll be able to, you know, compare it with the stock results and stuff like that. But that is that easy, and every card that I've had so far has done those clocks. But please, please, please remember the silicon lottery. Overclocking isn't guaranteed. Sometimes you will get those cards that the core just won't go this high. One thing that I have noticed is in one of the later videos, when overclocking with two cards, it can get a little bit picky and might not go as high. But single card, single screen, the majority of them will do this. But obviously the odd one won't. But that's no fault of the card, and it's not really anything that you're going to be able to RMA about either. So it is, as ever, the silicon lottery. But all the ones I've had here so far do this perfectly. Right then, peeps, first of the benchmarks, need to remember that these are all with the card completely maxed out in Catalyst Control Center, as I've shown you all previously. So, first of the scores, 3D Mark 11, we have a P-score of 9,577. The fact that we're even getting close to a 10,000 score with a single card, and it's just 100% stable, is just nuts, basically, and I'm loving it, really am. But anyway, yeah, massive, you're going to get fed up with me keep saying it, but yeah, huge score. But let's I'm going to be quiet now, and then we'll just crack straight on and get us an X score. So 3D Mark 11 X score. Now let's be honest, how many of you out there have got a graphics card that kind of score around that for a P score? So 3,246. Again, it's just another nuts score, really, isn't it? But it just goes to show you how good these cards really are. But what we're going to do now is instantly or quickly crack straight on with getting a P score for 3D Mark Vantage. So quickly moving on to the 3D Mark Vantage P score. And we've got a rather healthy 40,870. That's with a 39,227 score for the GPU and a 48,743 for the CPU. Obviously, we're running 2011. But yeah, 40,000. Just awesome stuff. I'm going to move rapidly on to getting an X score on this one now. So, the X score for Vantage, 21,396. These cards just really don't fail to surprise us, do they? Absolutely awesome. So, what I'm going to do now is quickly move on, and we'll get you a Unigine score. Right then, guys, single card, obviously overclocked. And this is with Unigine just open and then run, which is the way we generally do it. Frames per second 79.9, that's with a total score of 2014. Minimum frames per second was 39.7, and maximum frames per second was 173.8. Dear God, I couldn't even get my words out then. We'll say this is the end of the benchmarks, but what we're going to do now is move on to some games, but we're going to play the games in Eyefinity, just to stress the card that little bit more. Right then, peeps, this is just a quick look at Unigine in 5780, 5760, 5760 by 1080 mode. Sorry, I'm completely losing the plot today. Just wanted to give you a quick look at it, the way it runs across the screens. Obviously, this is, as with all the other ones, single card but overclocked. I'm not going to give you like a bench result with this, because we always use the stock one because that's easier to compare. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick look at what it looks like split across the three. Unigine's a great way of really stressing the cars. I do really quite like Unigine. This is basically just it opened and with the resolution changed. Nothing else has been changed on it. And yeah, it's a very good way of stressing a card. If you, do you know what I mean? If you really want to. The only problem I do have with it is if an overclock is unstable, it just freezes and you have to do a hard restart on the machine to be able to get it to reset again. But it certainly does look the part on the three screens. I'm kind of flicking my eyes between the actual monitors and the screen on the camera, but it certainly does look nice. Yeah, it's one of the better benchmarks to sit and watch. But I'm not going to bore you any longer. It's now time for us to crack on with some games. The games will be run maxed out, but obviously with the resolution turned up. So it's how they run is how they run. Right, and boys and girls, on to Battlefield. As you're probably aware, I'm not the best at this game, but the game is maxed out and we are in 5760 by 1080. I will do my best. I'm basically, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm just going to kind of run about a bit to give you a rough idea on what's going on. But the frames per second, as you can see there, with the card overclocked in triple screen, still staying around 30 frames per second, which is, let's face it, pretty damn good. Now the reason why I've not got the audio on is just so I can talk to you better, because I can only have a microphone for the audio or a microphone for the games. I'm really not very good at this, am I? Could do with a bit, well, not having to play it on the floor would be the best thing. I'm going to die in a minute, but anyway. Who's the buggery shooting at me? Anyway, I'm getting very caught up in trying to find people, but as you can see, pretty healthy frames per second really when we consider how demanding Battlefield was when it first came out, and we are running on triple screens. So now I'm quickly going to move on to Batman. Right then peeps, on to Batman. Now as you can see in the top left hand corner, you can see the temperature of the card there, you can see the percentage that's being used, and also the frames per second is on either side as well. Now Batman isn't the best kind of coded of games at all, so I'm just going to kind of run around for a bit. I have no idea how I did that then. Oops. Probably not the best thing to have done. Anyways, as you can see, the frames per second have been hovering around the kind of 20-25 mark at best. And like I said, that's mainly because I still think the game's not been patched properly yet. Maybe it'll perform worse afterwards, but it'll just look better. We don't really know. But I'm going to move on now, and we can take a look at Dirt 3. Right then peeps, on to Dirt 3. One thing I will say is it's in windowed mode. I've not worked out how to turn it off yet, and I've got to play this with the keyboard, which is a bit of a bummer. But as you can see, 99% usage on the GPU, and we're getting over 90 frames per second as well. I'll do my very best with the keyboard. I've got to admit, I am getting better. This game, to be honest with you, it's a bit easy. I think it may be because I'm getting used to the track, but yeah. Anyway, so I'm just going to whiz through this a bit, just so that you can see the frames per second, the fact that you can actually see how well it plays on triple screens. But I wish there would be a demanding GPU based car game, mainly because, to be perfectly honest with you, I'd use it loads. Now I'm probably going to crash into this matey because I'm... Get out of the way. I have to admit, I've not taken my finger off the accelerator once. But anyway, you can see, I've just looked over then and seen 80 frames a second. And yeah, really not the most demanding game in the world, but it's just the fact they give them away with all the graphics cards, and let's face it, it plays the game exceptionally well. It makes me wish that maybe you could make it look a bit nicer or something, but I suppose with a car game it's not like this. Much more you can get the GPU to render. So I'm going to crash. Right. it's time I'm going to put Metro on. Right then guys, on to Metro. Obviously single card, 5780, yeah, you know, triple screen res. Now this was always a very intensive game when it first got released. It was one of the ones that we thought, you know what I mean, are we ever going to get a graphics card that's going to run this smoothly? And we're now getting to the point where we're looking to say, are we going to get a graphics card that's going to run this with triple screen smoothly? And I've got to admit, the 7970 does do an amazing job. And I do mean an amazing job, because like I said, we've got to remember this is triple screens and this game is completely maxed out. I've got to admit though, the jumpiness as we're going around, it's more me than the game. Because when you go around to the next screen, it just, I've got the mouse turned down as little to as low as I possibly can do, and it just seems to, tiny movements, and you go miles, and it's yeah, it's quite. I think it's the fact that the side screens go black when you turn. If I show you there, it's quite disorientating. I don't know what happened there. Where did the beast go then? Anyway, that's the end of Metro. That looks like a comic book sketch, looking up at the camera now. Right then, we all made it to the conclusion. So, the overclocking performance, I've got to admit, I think that we need to talk about an award first. 7970 Gold Award. We used the Powercolor for this one, but they're all the same. So Powercolor Gold Award, all the other ones Gold Award as well. But let's talk about what this review was really concentrating on. It was about the overclocking and then triple screen performance. Now overclocking, have to admit, with the early BIOS or like the reference BIOSes and stuff, you've got 1125 as an upper buffer for the core, and then 1525 as an upper buffer for the memory. And you can pretty much, with almost every card out there, you're going to be able to max that out. There are going to be the odd ones that won't. I have had one already that doesn't really like 1125, but that's just, it's one of those pick of the draw things. I think most of them will. If yours don't, then sadly you've just not won the Silicon Lottery. You're not going to be able to RMA it because of it, because obviously it works fine out of the box, which is what it's designed to do. But I think the majority of them, you are going to, you know, go real high with them. Another thing, I think later on there may be new BIOSes that get released, or BIOSes that have been unlocked that you'll be able to flash on there, because I think these cards, I think they've still got a lot there, to the point where I'm actually going to be looking into this a little bit more to see if there is any more that we can eke out of them. Because I've heard, well, I've seen clocks online of people with liquid nitrogen and stuff getting these up to like 1600 megahertz plus, which is absolutely nuts. One thing that I will say though, just because a lot of people are going to instantly start comparing them to other cards and other brands, is don't forget that the core clock doesn't necessarily mean a lot. For argument's sake, if you had a 7 gigahertz old P4 processor, you'd still be better off with a 3 gigahertz new Sandy Bridge, for example. It's all about architecture and the way that the stuff works. So although it's impressive that you can overclock them from their stock performance up a lot higher, don't necessarily think that just because it's already, you know what I mean, you can run it at over a gigahertz, that it's necessarily going to be better than something else. Although at the moment it is, but it's just one of those things I'm just trying to get across, because a lot of people don't seem to understand that, or they think because other cards can't get up to like a gigahertz and beyond and stuff that they're somehow inferior, but let's face it, they couldn't. They're not. So I hope I'm not being too confusing. Triple screen performance. One thing I will say is the triple screen performance, a lot of people are going to be bitching about the drivers, but to be perfectly honest with you, I need to explain that it's going to be a mixture. We all know that the people that are going to moan that it's the drivers are going to be the Nvidia fanboys, and the people that are going to moan it's the games are going to be the AMD fanboys. Well, you're both right, because it's a mixture of the two. Some games will love it, some games won't. It's just one of those things. It's still relatively early days. Hopefully the game developers are going to, you know, work on, you know, ways that they can make their games work better with the way that the 7970 or the 7000 series works. And at the same time, they're going to be releasing caps and kind of like driver updates and stuff that allow the card itself and the way that the card works to work better with the games that are out there. So it's a bit of a mixture of the two, and I'm really sorry that I can't really say any different. But yeah, far too many people try and say you're a fanboy. Do you know what I mean? You love this, you love that, and it's not. You've just got to kind of like stand there and kind of see it how you see it. Now, one thing I will say is out of the box, even a stock card is amazing. Overclocked, it goes that kind of step further. We had a massive leap with the 3D Mark 11 scores and the 3D Mark Vantage scores. They all had a healthy step forward. Obviously, when you overclock, you get a little bit more heat. Now, the cooler, you know, the reference cooler that's on the card is significantly better than the old 6000 series one, but it's still not perfect. I'd still say it's louder than the Nvidia 500 series. But something that I will say is it does run a bit cooler. So they're trading off that extra bit of fan noise with the fact that it does run a bit cooler. So if you want it quieter, I'd probably say, you know what I mean, you could set the fan profiles up to keep it a bit quieter and then just sacrifice it with a little bit more heat. But one thing I will say is when you do get in the games, the temperatures still do go up, you know, up to kind of what I would say are Nvidia levels for temperature, but the fan does spin up a little bit more as well. So they've definitely taken a massive stride forward with the fact that, like I said, the cooler is much better, but it's still not. I think they're still being limited by that blow fan that they get on the back of the card. I don't think they're ever going to be able to perfect that design so it's quiet and still works well. So maybe they need to kind of, I think the way they're thinking is that was what makes it look like an AMD card, and I can see where they're coming from, but with the cooler on, we'll just say the other brand's cards, and the fan that they use is so much better. Couldn't they just use something like that but red? It's a real confusing one, to be honest with you. I hope eventually when like the vendors bring out their own coolers and stuff like that, we'll have better cooling cards out there. I already know that Arctic Cooling have got a cooler available for it. I'm going to try and get one actually, and we'll see what that's like. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of a yin and yang. The performance is awesome, definitely above the 580, to the point where the single card at times is knocking on the doors of a Mars. So the performance is amazing. It's just, and I do really like the performance as well. I'm happy that they've, you know, gone this far, and do you know what I mean? They have been able to beat it. But the cooler's a bit, do you know what I mean? It's definitely better, but it's not brilliant. It's not as quiet and as cool as we would have liked. But one thing I will say now, I don't know how to put this, that you're not, do you know what I mean? You're all going to get funny with me, but the 7000 series is quicker than the current 500 series. So maybe AMD have aimed it all at the 500 series, but what happens when we get a replacement for those cards? I mean, we're talking about hypothetically here, so I'm not going to knock it down for it at all. It's just something that in the back of my head, I've just got this little bit of a fear, because I would have liked to have stayed like this. To be perfectly honest, if I'm all honest with you, I would have liked AMD to have come through with this because their processors were a bit meh. I would have liked them to have come in with such a massive leap forward that even Nvidia were kind of sat there going, ooh, this ain't good. We need to go away a little bit more. And from everything I've heard, like behind the scenes, I don't know. We're going to have to wait. But for the time being, as we stand at this moment in time, the 7970 is the fastest single core, and by that I mean it's got one GPU on it, single core graphics card on the planet. And we've not got, you know, down to any of the other cards and stuff or anything like that yet. But it is brilliant. I think with a little bit more polish, it could have been epic. So yeah, I am being, as ever, really, really picky about things. But they've definitely done an amazing job with this. And like I said, hopefully this is going to be the start of things to come. So one thing I will note that I covered in the video before, but I'll say it again, is that for everybody out there that has been going PCI Express 3 bonkers, you don't really get any graphics improvement with the PCI Express 3 at all with this card. It's not hitting the buffers of the PCI Express 2. So if your board's PCI Express 3 compatible, and by that I mean with a BIOS update the card will work in your machine, because some of them, if you put them in, it just won't work at all. But if you've got one that's compatible, so you've got a PCI Express 2 lane, you flash the BIOS over on the board, and then it allows you to use it in there, but only with PCI Express 2 bandwidth, you're not going to be seeing any PCI Express bottleneck in there at all. You'll be, say for argument's sake, if someone had an identical rig to you, but with a PCI Express lane on theirs, you'll be getting the exact same scores, near as damn it. So, to be perfectly honest with you, maybe when they bring out the faster, like say for argument's sake, if they ever do bring out a 7990, maybe that will need more bandwidth. But for the moment, this one, the single core card, really doesn't need it. So, all of those of you out there that have been going, oh, I'm going to go get myself a 7970, I've got to have, PCI Express 3. You don't. And maybe that is a slight hint why AMD are not supporting PCI Express 3 with any of their coming chipsets. If you have a look, the 990 FX and all that kind of, those chipsets for the boards, there is no onboard PCI Express 3 support at all. So yeah, maybe there. Do you know what I mean? That's a little hint about the the actual performance measures with these. Only time will tell whether like the bigger cards are going to need that. The other brand, whether that's going to need PCI Express 3. Do you know what I mean? We don't really know yet. But the long and short of it is the 7970 is an amazing card. It overclocks really well. It performs epically. And we all know that Powercolor are a very a brilliant brand. You get everything in the box that you could want. You get active adapters so that you can run triple screens in the box. You've got other adapters in there, so do you know what I mean? You can literally have 3 monitors with DVIs, and you've got everything in the box that you can just go bosh, 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 bosh. Simple dimple. One thing that I will say though is that if you're going to be doing triple screens, start it up with one screen, and then for the other 2 screens, just stick them in hot or live, and that'll be the quickest way for you to get them running, rather than trying to start them up with it all connected. That's the way I do it anyway, and it seems to work every time. But as I said before, gold award winning, thoroughly deserves it as well. It's nice to be able to sit here and say positive things about an AMD product. It really is nice, and do you know what I mean? Yeah, they look good as well, don't they? But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another 7970 video for you. Out.